I'm going to do a short series of videos on the Arduino microcontroller development system, which is a public domain, open source type of system for programming AVR or ARM type controllers. The idea behind the Arduino was to make a system that was simple enough for students, artists, other non-technical, non-computer people to get into and be able to learn. So say an artist wants to make a project move or act intelligent in a certain way, you know, that person should be able to figure out how to do it. It's a fairly simplified system. It's about as good as simple as you can make it, pretty much. Arguably the flowchart thing in ARMS is possibly simpler. But aside from that, you know, it's greatly simplified C. And C was foreign to me, but it was very easy for me to pick it up. I've been experimenting with the Arduino Uno. The Arduino is a programming environment for microcontrollers. A microcontroller is simply a microprocessor of sorts with some of the peripheral type stuff added to it. Microcontrollers are usually a lower powered microprocessor with enough flexibility on the input and output pins to do different things. Like it has pulse width modulation is built into a few pins on most of these Arduinos. And basically just very flexible I/O, which you might not really have on a straight MPU. A straight microprocessor is going to look to support chips to do some of the stuff that are built into the microcontroller chip in terms of, you know, giving you more flexibility with input output and how you can configure input output pins. You can get a variety of microcontrollers under the Arduino heading here, and they're all going to operate under the same basic Arduino structure, which is basically a C programming structure. It's simplified C, though. It's a simplified library. You don't have to do a lot of the memory stuff you might have to do with in a straight C. It's very much simplified, and the hardware is very much simplified too. The examples that they give you show you it's just pretty much plug and play as far as the hardware goes. You really don't have to know much about electronics. You'll learn as you do. You don't have to know much about programming. You'll learn that as you do too. I have no exposure to C at all. Virtually none anyway when I started this program. And I picked up C very quickly. My only formal training in programming was with Fortran decades ago, and then I got pretty heavy into BASIC on the 8-bit Ataris. But really I haven't done a whole lot since then. I did a little bit of 6502 assembly back then too, in those days. Haven't really done any programming for years though, decades. But it was very easy to learn this, and very easy to pick it up. The syntax will get you down at first. You got to kind of learn the syntax, and but after you find out what you can and can't get away with, you know, where it's flexible and where it's not flexible, it's basically pretty darn easy. It hasn't really challenged me at all. Either my programming or my electronics abilities have not been challenged whatsoever. I'm actually fairly advanced in electronics, although I'm pretty rusty. I used to be a bench tech maybe 20, 30 years ago, so I was pretty sharp back then, but lately, in the last 30 years almost now, I've has it been that long? Well, since '88, I've been working a job that is electronic related, but doesn't really get into the nuts and bolts of the hardware. So a lot of little things with the syntax you got to learn, what it's tolerant of, what it isn't tolerant of. Blank spaces in the program is pretty much ignored by the program. So whether you put things on one line or two, whether you put spaces in front of them, whether you indent and all that, the program is going to pretty much ignore all that. So you're free to do whatever you want with spaces. The biggest thing that screwed me up in the beginning was keeping my so-called curvy brackets learning to type those and not the straight curved bracket. On my font it's pretty similar. You have to really look to see the difference between the two brackets. You may want to change your font in Windows to something that shows the so-called curvy brackets in a more contrasting way to the simpler brackets, simple curved brackets. Recently I started by just playing with the Blink program, and that was one of my original handicaps. My Arduino, I guess they're sending the Uno out now programmed with the Blink program on it, which is kind of a handicap, because if you write the first program, which is usually going to be Blink, and it's already doing what you want it to do, you don't really know that you've done it, you know what I mean? So what you do with Blink is go ahead and change the length of the delays, so you can tell it's distinctive that your Blink is not the pre-made Blink. So I made the Blink go for like 1/10 of a second and stay on for 2 seconds, or stay off for 2 seconds, you know, so I got a real fast flash, blink, and then a long pause. And then I knew it was my Blink and not the I knew my program was getting into the machine and working properly. And then I started screwing around with, making it do like 3 quick blinks and then a pause, which got me to playing with loops and syntax and stuff a little bit. That's what I really recommend you do anyway, is play with the syntax. Another thing that messed me up was just getting started with some of the instructions I found, and a guy named M.J. Lorington, that's probably not right either, but I'll have to look out and put him in the description. His video was the first video that got me started, because I couldn't go by the instructions they gave as far as setting up the handlers and stuff. You've got to go to your device manager, which is a little different on different versions of Windows. But you get into the device manager, and it's not going to show the way they tell you it's going to show. It doesn't show as an Arduino handler, a USB device. It's not going to show you that until the handler's installed. It's not even going to show up under the COM ports like they tell you where it's going to show. It's going to show as an unknown USB device, with a yellow question mark thing in front of it, somewhere above where they tell you to expect it. So what the one guy told me to do was, in his video, was get that device manager up and then plug your Arduino in. And you'll see that pop in. You'll see that yellow question mark pop in right away when you plug it in. It'll be pretty obvious where it is then. And from there you can follow the instructions. And then you got to get COM ports correct and everything else. That was my next thing, is I thought I had the COM port set right, but I had to go and choose it even though it was on the one machine, because I had more than one COM port on the other machine. This machine didn't have to do that because it only has one COM port. It doesn't have any traditional COM ports. My other machine's got traditional COM ports and USBs and all kinds of stuff going on. A lot of little hookups initially getting started.